Let me ask you a question. What if everything you've been taught about debt is incomplete? What if debt isn't always bad? And in some cases, it's actually the reason the wealthy keep getting wealthier. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Rich people don't avoid debt. They master it. And once you understand how they use it, the entire financial game looks very different. Most people grow up hearing one simple rule. Debt is dangerous. Debt is stressful. Debt should be avoided at all costs. Pay cash, don't owe anyone anything, and you'll be safe. And while that advice sounds sensible, it quietly keeps people stuck because the wealthy follow a completely different rulebook. They don't ask, how do I get rid of debt? They ask, how do I use debt to multiply my money, reduce my taxes, and buy back my time? The key difference is not how much debt someone has. It's what the debt is doing for them. Poor and middle-class debt usually takes money out of your pocket. Rich debt puts money into your pocket. That single distinction changes everything. Let's start by clearing something up. Debt itself is neutral. It's not good or bad, it's a tool, just like fire. Fire can burn your house down, or it can heat it and cook your food. The outcome depends entirely on how you use it. When people say debt is bad, what they really mean is consumer debt used without a strategy is bad. Credit cards for clothes you don't need. Car loans for vehicles that lose value the moment you drive them off the lot. Buy now, pay later plans that quietly drain future income. That kind of debt keeps you working harder just to stay in place. Rich people try to avoid that type of debt as much as possible. Instead, they focus on what's called productive debt. Debt that acquires assets. Assets that either produce cash flow, appreciate over time, or both. Think real estate, businesses, and investments that grow faster than the interest on the loan used to buy them. Here's an example. If someone borrows money at 5% interest to buy an asset that reliably earns 10%, the debt isn't a burden. It's leverage. The bank takes the risk, the asset does the work, and the borrower keeps the spread. That gap between what the asset earns and what the debt costs is where wealth is built. One of the most common ways rich people use debt is through real estate. They rarely buy property outright in cash, even if they could. Why? Because mortgages are some of the cheapest money you can access. When inflation exists, and it always does, fixed-rate debt actually becomes cheaper over time. You're paying tomorrow's loan payments with inflated future dollars, while the property value and rents tend to rise. Let's say someone buys a rental property with a small down payment and a mortgage. The tenant pays the rent. That rent covers the mortgage, the expenses, and ideally leaves profit. Over time, the tenant pays off the loan, not the owner. Meanwhile, the property appreciates. After 20 or 30 years, the loan is gone, but the asset remains. That's not debt trapping you. That's debt working for you. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Rich people also understand tax advantages. In many countries, interest on investment-related debt is tax-deductible. Depreciation can reduce taxable income without reducing actual cash flow. Losses on paper can exist while cash still comes in. This is why wealthy individuals often pay a lower effective tax rate than high-income earners who rely solely on salary. The tax system rewards asset ownership and leverage. Another major way rich people use debt is to avoid selling assets. Imagine someone owns shares or a business that's growing rapidly. If they sell it to access cash, they trigger taxes and lose future growth. Instead, they borrow against the asset. They get liquidity without giving up ownership. The asset continues to grow, and the loan is paid back over time, often using income generated elsewhere. This strategy is sometimes referred to as borrow, don't sell. It's one of the most powerful wealth preservation tactics available. When you sell an asset, the growth stops. When you borrow against it, the growth continues while you still access capital. That's how wealth compounds quietly in the background. Rich people also understand that time matters more than comfort. They're willing to take on controlled, calculated risk early to create leverage. This doesn't mean reckless borrowing. It means doing the math. It means stress testing assumptions. It means asking, if this asset underperforms, can I still survive? They plan for downside before upside. That's a massive difference compared to how most people use debt. Many people take on debt hoping things work out. The wealthy take on debt knowing they will, because the numbers already make sense. Another overlooked aspect is opportunity cost. If you use all your cash to buy one asset outright, you lose flexibility. That same cash could have been used as multiple down payments, multiple investments, multiple income streams. Debt allows capital to be spread wider, increasing the number of shots you take at success. Think of it this way: paying cash feels safe, but it can actually slow you down. Leverage, when used responsibly, accelerates outcomes. The wealthy don't hoard cash just to feel secure. They deploy it strategically. Now let's talk about business debt. This is one of the most misunderstood areas. Many wealthy entrepreneurs use debt to scale. They borrow to hire, to market, to expand, to acquire competitors, or to improve systems. The goal isn't to borrow forever. The goal is to use borrowed capital to grow faster than they could with savings alone. If a business can generate a high return on capital, using debt makes sense. If it can't, debt becomes dangerous. This is why rich people obsess over margins, cash flow, and unit economics. They know debt magnifies both success and failure. It's also important to understand that rich people rarely personally guarantee reckless debt. They separate themselves from risk through legal structures. Businesses borrow, assets borrow, not the individual whenever possible. This limits downside while preserving upside. There's also a psychological component here. Rich people don't see debt as shameful. They see it as a contractual agreement, a tool to be used intentionally. Emotional reactions to debt often come from past experiences or fear-based messaging. Wealthy individuals focus on logic and numbers, not guilt. Now, let's be clear. None of this means everyone should rush out and take on debt. Bad debt will destroy your financial future. High-interest consumer debt is a trap. Debt without income to service it is a ticking time bomb. Using debt without understanding cash flow is gambling. The real lesson here is education and intent. Rich people learn how money works early or surround themselves with people who do. They don't blindly follow advice designed to keep people safe. They learn how to calculate risk, how to read balance sheets, how to structure deals, and how to exit if things go wrong. At a foundational level, this is what separates financial growth from financial stagnation. Most people focus on saving. The wealthy focus on acquiring assets. Most people focus on paying off debt. The wealthy focus on using debt to buy things that pay them back. And here's the uncomfortable part. Avoiding all debt doesn't guarantee freedom. In many cases, it guarantees you'll work longer hours, more years, more dependence on a paycheck. Meanwhile, those who understood leverage early quietly build income streams that eventually replace active work. This doesn't happen overnight. It takes patience, discipline, and learning. But it starts with changing how you think about debt. Instead of asking, "How fast can I pay this off?" start asking, "Is this debt making me richer or poorer?" If it's not producing income or long-term value, it's probably not worth it. The wealthy don't worship debt. They respect it, they understand it, they use it sparingly but strategically, and most importantly, they always maintain control. Cash flow first, reserves second, growth third. If you're early in your journey, the takeaway isn't to copy everything the rich do. It's to understand why they do it. Build financial literacy. Learn the difference between liabilities and assets. Learn how interest works both against you and for you. Learn how taxes influence decisions. Over time, your decisions will naturally shift. And one final thing. Rich people think long-term. They're willing to look wrong early if it means being right later. They don't panic at short-term volatility. They focus on systems, not just outcomes. Debt is just one part of a much bigger picture. If this perspective changed how you see money even a little bit, there's a lot more coming. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next videos where we break down common money mistakes in your 20s and debunk the biggest finance myths you've probably been told.